Hello crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com and today I'm here with a 10 cards 1 kit video. Today's kit is the Spellbinders card kit of the month, and this is the July kit, July 2018. They reached out to me and asked me if I would like to work with the kit. From past videos, I enjoy working with kits. I think that they're fun. I kind of got a preview. I knew I could use these cards really well. And so I want to show you the different components of the kit. Because it's Spellbinders, Spellbinders is known for high quality dies. And one of the things that's really cool about their dies is they often some of them have this like little embossing detail too, so it doesn't always just cut out a shape. Like particularly their basic shapes have a little extra edge on them, which makes them really interesting. So I will leave you a link in the video description so you can check out the kit in more detail. They retail for $35 for the kit. This kit obviously includes dies that you can permanently add to your collection. So a lot of kits include stamp sets, but this one has the dies, which are a great value too. So if you see some basic dies, I think that's what's interesting about this kit, is being able to build your stash of dies while also discovering some new supplies. So the card kit, as you can see, came with some die cuts, enamel dots, sequins, ribbon. It also actually came with some tape. There's a little tassel in it. The tape does make it interesting because there are 10 card bases and I believe 10 envelopes as well, plus all of these stickers and pattern paper. And so because it comes with the adhesive and it even comes with foam dots, you could make cards with this kit without owning very much else at all. I actually don't know if I used anything besides the kit today. If I do, I'll try to kind of point it out. But the completeness of the kit was very unique. Now, I realize some people are probably thinking, well, I don't really need adhesive or foam dots. And so if you have a lot of supplies, maybe that's not the most ideal thing. But if you're somebody who's just starting out, being able to kind of have it all in one go would be great. But I was also thinking, even if you do have a lot of supplies, being able to just grab the kit and then go to a crop or some other sort of scrapbooking event or travel, if you don't want to bring a bunch of supplies with you on a vacation, but you want to be able to craft a little bit, if you're away for, a couple days, a few weeks, etc., like those kind of big summer vacations, being able to just kind of have it all in one box is pretty cool. You will, of course, need something to cut your paper. Could be as simple as scissors or a small paper trimmer. So I looked up a few sketches as I was working. I kind of have like a Pinterest board full of sketches. So I'll link to the Pinterest board, but I forgot to write down all the sketches that I used. But this is kind of one of those days where I needed a little bit of help getting inspired. I knew that I wanted to try to stick to the kit as much as possible. Anybody who has seen some of my other 10 cards 1 kit videos knows that that's kind of a general challenge I try to stick myself to, just because I want to show you the value you can get. This tip here, I used the yellow cardstock from the kit to cut this border, and I was only going to use it as a tiny little bit around this pink pattern paper. So I just grabbed a few die cuts, or a few of the dies from the kit, and I cut them out of the center. I didn't have any purpose for those particular die cuts. Like I didn't know what I was going to do with the yellow label or the yellow sunglasses, but I figured if I was just covering up that area anyway, why not just have those shapes die cut and put them in the bowl so when I have die cuts, I often just have a little bowl on my table that I throw them all in, so that as I'm working through the kit, I can just kind of go in there and grab what I need. I'll do the same thing if I stamp some images from a kit. So this kit doesn't have stamps, but like in other kits, if I stamped a few images, I'll put them in a little bowl on the table so I can just kind of grab from them. For this card, the first 2 cards, actually, honestly, the cards in general are a little bit basic in some ways. I'm not using any sort of crazy techniques. again, in part because I'm trying to stick to what's in the kit, so I wouldn't want to pull in a bunch of inks or other coloring mediums just to show you what you can do without those. So this one I kept really simple, as I used right away that yellow die cut that I had cut out of the background paper, because I kind of thought, well, why not? It was there already. It made a great place for my sentiment. I like that this pattern paper has different ethnicities on it. I thought that was pretty cool. Not that I have a lot of pattern paper with people on it, but I just thought, I send my cards to organizations that donate and distribute the cards. So obviously they reach a wide range of people. So it's nice when that range of people is actually represented. I mean, they're all like little skinny minis here, so that's not very accurate, but they're trying, and it was a cute paper. I really thought the papers were, I enjoy the papers that were in the kit. They are a little thinner than some other pattern papers, but when you layer them up, you don't really notice that kind of thing. It didn't bother me, but just, a fact there. I wanted to make a point to use the die cuts that were included in the kit, and I've said this before in other kit videos, but I will often try to use up most of the kit in one go, even if I don't show it all on camera. So I'm only going to make 10 cards today in the video, but sometimes I'll just kind of try to go through and use up the rest of the stuff in one burst, because I find it a little bit tricky to integrate some kit contents into my stash. Enamel dots, sequins, that kind of thing, that can easily just sort of be slotted into my stash. So I don't worry as much about using up those, but die cuts, they tend to pair really well with the pattern paper that comes in the kit. And if you don't use them with it, then it becomes a little bit trickier to find things that they match up with. So for that reason, I'm pretty generous as I go through my die cuts in a kit. I don't try to save them or anything like that. This ribbon, I can throw it in my stash easily. Like I said, enamel dots, sequins, all that kind of stuff. The dies will be great additions to my die stash. But some of the other embellishments, the tags, the die cuts, I'm going to use those up. So I created a little vignette. Is that what you call it? Like when you have a little grouping of things? So I created a little grouping of things. We'll just call it what it is. Not use any fancy words here. So I created the little grouping, and I chose generally to do like odd groupings. So there's technically 3 die cuts and a tag, but even with the enamel dots, again, I just, I put them in a visual triangle. It wasn't my favorite card though. I kind of felt like the enamel dots looked a little cluttered, but I sort of just went with it. The other thing that I knew that I wanted to make a point to use were those, I want to call them flower embellishments, but they're not quite flowers. There's a word for that. Let's see if I can remember what it is before the end of the video. But they said lovely. And I thought, well, there's a hello in the sticker sheet, so why not pair the sticker sheet with it and create the sentiment, hello, lovely. And since it looks like a flower, it was a good excuse to use the leaf, and I was able to kind of keep it all pretty simple because I was using up a lot of supplies even in this very simple design. One of my favorite papers from the kit was actually that heart paper that I'm using there in the background. It's an ombre heart paper. It goes from pink to an orange. And in general, I enjoyed the colors of this kit. They felt like very fun, summery colors, and they weren't all, in my opinion, the most obvious matches. Pink and orange, not everybody likes how they go together, but the particular pink and orange that they picked for the kit look great together. I wanted to add a little bit more interest, so I added this banner here, and as you can see, you don't need a die cut to cut banners, a die. You can simply cut down the center and then cut angles from the side to create that triangle. I find that if I'm trying to create a banner, cutting down the center first helps a lot to make it look clean. I wanted to use each of the die cuts from the kit at least once on the cards, just so you can get a feel for how they are useful. So I could die cut a bunch of the sun shapes from the yellow cardstock. The thing I want to mention about the cardstock that you can't see here on the video is it's textured. It's not the thickest cardstock I've ever worked with, but it has that texture to it. And I think that that is important to giving some interest to cardstock. Sometimes using large pieces of plain cardstock, even if it's thick, isn't quite as interesting. So that little bit of texture, I think, added to it. I put everything on an orange background, but I sort of let it overlap and overflow from the card a bit. I find that that adds a lot of interest rather than having everything end perfectly or fit inside things perfectly. If having a little bit hangover and either cutting it off or choosing not to, if it will still accommodate your envelope, just makes it look a little bit more interesting, gives it a little bit of movement. The stickers are another thing that I'm trying to use up a fair amount of, and you may have noticed that I continue to use that die cut trick of cutting out elements that are at the center of the die cut. I don't show it every time because I showed it the one time and I like to keep the videos a semi-reasonable length. But here, when I want a sentiment, I kind of think, can I use up any scraps first? Like I wanted something to put this smile sentiment on. And when I didn't find any scraps, then I moved on to a whole piece of cardstock. But one of the advantages of working on a kit or on making several cards with a kit is it's easier to use up your scraps. If you're just making a single card, the temptation to kind of cut into new stuff, and which is not a bad thing. I mean, use your stuff, please. But when you're kind of already playing, it's easier to see how to use your scraps, in my experience, in my opinion. I've crafted for 15 years or so, and I find that I can do that when I'm kind of on a roll, but it's harder to remember where my scraps are, or what scraps I want to use when I'm not making a few cards in a row. I find that I use a lot more supplies when I choose to make multiple cards. So I don't know, it's just a general recommendation if you think that you're having a hard time using your supplies. Here I wanted to add a bit of ribbon, and I will mention with this ribbon, most of it is sheer or pretty thin so you can see through it. And that means you could see your adhesive through it, but depending on the adhesive you use, it won't be very noticeable. I think it's important to use an entire strip across. The adhesive that comes with the kit would be able to serve that function really well, but just something to keep in mind. I thought the flip-flop die was really adorable. It kind of makes me want to think up a sort of flip-flop pun to put on the card, because I will say without the stamp set there wasn't quite as many punny sayings. There was a lot of good general sayings, and so I was really happy that I was able to create all of my sentiments without needing anything outside the kit. But I'm a sucker for puns, and so I kind of enjoying that flip-flop die. I kind of wish I had a flip-flop pun sentiment. One of the dies was also a tag, and that kind of makes me think what I enjoyed about this particular set or this particular kit is there's some good basics to add to your collection and some fun themed things. So there's a tag die cut or die that you can use, all year round, any occasion, etc. But there's also the flip-flops and the sunglasses that are clearly very summery. I think that if you only got very themed dies, they would seem a little bit less valuable because you wouldn't be able to use them on as many projects or all year round. But the fact they give you a good mix is something that I found appealing, and found that to me that would make it more worth it to purchase a kit, knowing that I was getting some great basics as well. I made a little arrangement of tags for my focal point as opposed to creating just a single image for a focal point. And I was trying to really embrace all of the die cuts that I'd made accidentally from, not even accidentally, I mean, I did them on purpose, but like from all this, background papers. And I was trying to embrace all of the fun colors of the kit because they did a great job matching them up. So why not go with it? I really liked this little ice cream truck, but I was having a hard time figuring out where to use him. And so the sun would have worked just fine. But like I said, I was excited and I really wanted to make an excuse to use it. So I just added it, even though it doesn't make sense in a scene, like it's not driving by anything, but it's still kind of fun. I did, again, put him off the page a little bit to add to that sense of movement. And then I was able to complete that card. I will say there was 10 cards and 10 envelopes. But this kit would definitely make way more than that. You might eventually run out of pattern paper or cardstock. You'll, of course, run out of card bases. But you could choose to, supplement it with some cardstock you have on hand. Or you could choose to not use the cardstock for different elements of, like here I'm using the pink cardstock as the background for my card, but I could either do all of this right on top of the white cardstock so that I can make more card bases, like use the solid pieces of cardstock to make cards. But I find that most crafters have some extra cardstock in their stash. It may not coordinate as perfectly, but again, just add to card bases. You could use white. I often do that with kits. So I just wanted to let you know that was the value level of the kit. It wasn't just enough to make 10 cards. Here's another time when I am clearly trying to use up some scraps. I often find that those really small strip scraps are the ones I'm most likely to recycle in the end. And in an effort to do a little bit less of that this time, I decided to kind of play with the idea of, I think it's called paper quilting. I wasn't doing it in any sort of like specific way. It was a little bit random, or paper weaving, where like the papers are kind of held together by weaving them through each other. You could weave them a bit more. I sort of just picked which patterns I wanted to be more and less prominent. And so if I really wanted a pattern to be a little bit more the star, I didn't cover it with as many papers as some of the others. But this is a fun way to use your scraps, and you could create several cards like this and use up a whole pile of paper strips. You would just need either to put them directly onto a card base or some solid papers to go in the background. And I decided to spell out my sentiment. Another cool thing about the kit is it came with just a sheet of letter stickers, which allows you to personalize things a bit. Next up, I really wanted to use the gold paper that came in the kit. It's fun and shiny. And as far as I understand, it's a pretty good staple in the kit. Like they often have them, and it was good quality. I die cut nicely. You can see well the detail. So I kind of talked about how Spellbinders has a lot of embossing detail on their basic dies. So this basic die shape here, when you saw it as the plain cardstock, you might not have noticed it, but when you see it here in this metallic paper, it actually has that really cool detail, which is visible in real life, when you see like even on the solid pieces. And of course, to save on cardstock, I cut this die cut shape out of the center of the one that I layered it on top of, so that I wasn't wasting, quote unquote, my gold cardstock. And I wanted to make sure that I used the ice cream die cut. I thought he was really cute, and I wanted to use the sunglasses on him. I'm pretty sure that's one of the inspiration images, because I got a little card that had some inspiration on it. And yeah, they did the sunglass thing. So it wasn't my idea. I don't know who the designer was, but if you look on the Spellbinders website, you'll see that somebody else came up with the idea of putting the sunglasses on the ice cream. But I drew a little smiley face for him and kind of played up that. I just thought it was such a cute idea. I wanted to find a way to use it myself. But I did have a bit of an issue because the sticker on the gold paper didn't really work out the way that I hoped it would. There were like little air bubbles that got trapped under the sticker, which could have been like a user error thing, but also if you got any fingerprints on the sticker and you put it down on top of the shiny gold paper, it was noticeable. So you probably can't really see it here on the way the camera works, but here you can see it better finally. So I tried to kind of smooth it out, get those air bubbles gone, and it didn't quite work out the way I wanted. So I eventually decided to cover that up, which was kind of a bummer because I thought that I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. Like that was a cute little sentiment. It went perfectly with the card. So I would just maybe not use the stickers over the gold cardstock, but also maybe if you're a little bit more careful, you'll have more success with it. But I did want to mention that. And to add a bit of interest, I also put the stripes of ribbon behind it. Again, with the sheer ribbon, if you put a big long strip of adhesive behind it, it's not very noticeable, but on a card like that, you could hide a lot of the adhesive too, so that you don't see it under the sheer by only adhering the ribbon to the back of the card or where it's going to be covered. So like there was the ice cream and the sentiment layered on top of the ribbon, and you could just kind of only use your ribbon there. I wanted to use a bit more of the gold paper. Even though I had a little bit of trouble with that sticker, I really liked the way the last card turned out. And for this card, which is also going to be the last of my 10 cards, I wanted to reuse some of the same elements that I enjoyed and just have a bit more fun making this card. Because I will say, when you're working on a card and something doesn't quite go right, it can be a little bit discouraging. And so to not be as discouraged, I kind of tried to redo the concept in a more fun and easy way. With that in mind, I used the sprinkles again. I used the gold cardstock again because I enjoyed both of them. And I made another piece of food die cut into I don't want to say critter, but like I gave another food die cut sunglasses on a face because I thought it was fun. And I just, so I went with it. I used the pretzel image, and it's a little bit funny because the pretzel's eyes are going to be like in the holes, so it doesn't really make any sense. But a pretzel as like a what do you call it? I don't know, a living pretzel. I can't think of the fancy word for it. Apparently fancy words are not in my vocabulary today. A living pretzel is just kind of silly and funny. And so I went with it. I did decide though that the sunglasses might make a bit more sense if I colored in the black part of the sunglasses and left the die cut part that's colored as like the frames. So it would look a little bit more accurately like sunglasses. And while there could have been a die to do that, it is really easy to fill it in because that area is embossed actually. It's a little hard to tell on camera, but in real life you'll see there's an embossed line where the lenses normally would be. So you can just kind of trace that line and fill it in with a black pen and create the look of lenses. So I traced it with the fine line side of my Memento tuxedo black marker, and then I used the brush side to fill it in because the brush side works a little bit faster and covers the space more quickly. But once I have his shades complete, that will be it for my video today. Those are my 10 cards. I will have a coordinating blog post. Oh, sorry, I do add a few enamel dots too because I kind of wanted to use a few more of them up, even though, again, they could be great stash builders. I will leave a link to a blog post that just shows you still photos of them all. I'll try to include some measurements that can be a little bit time consuming. Apparently I added sequins too. Sorry guys, I totally lied. I'm not done, but it's fine. I will say using like small zots though, like the mini zots or the mini glue dots behind sequins is a really easy, great way to attach them. Anyway, there'll be a blog post. You'll see some close-ups. I'll try to add some measurements. It can be a little bit tricky at times, but hopefully those are helpful. Hopefully get some great ideas for using your scraps. I will leave you links to Spellbinders in case you're interested in finding out more information about their kits. And I appreciate Spellbinders giving me this opportunity to try one of their kits because it was really fun to work with. There will be affiliate links used in the video description. Thank you. And that's a great way to support my channel. I really appreciate that you guys take the time to click those links. Thank you so much for watching my channel. Have an awesome day. Bye.